Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give it a few more seconds just to make sure everybody who wants to log in is logged in. About 30 more seconds. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to introduce the SGS webinar, Put the Brakes on Hacks with TISAX. The speakers for today are Willie Fabritas, Dusan Nikolic, and I am Cindy Williams, the Regional Sales Manager for Automotive at SGS. A little history and some brief information for you. SGS is the world leading inspection, testing, and certification company. We have over 98,000 employees in over 2,650 locations around the world and expertise across 7 focus areas. We provide assistance and expertise with global support and services that cater to all industries. Some of the knowledge solution. We are the largest provider of audits, certification, training, and advisory services. We have the ability to turn your needs into comprehensive solutions. The SGS difference. We have highly experienced quality and regulatory experts in the automotive and information security area, ready to offer training to you from our SGS Academy. At the end of this presentation, we will have several links for you to our training courses on our SGS Academy. In addition, an email will be sent later with a link to this recording and a copy of the presentation. There will be a Q&A at the end, so please feel free to put your questions in the chat box so we can discuss them at the end of the presentation. We also will have a survey, so if you could, please fill it out at the end. Here is our agenda. This is a quick synopsis. We'll have an introduction to TISAX. What is TISAX and who needs it? TISAX assessment process introduction, differences between the TISAX assessment levels, understanding the ISA assessment catalog, and finally the Q&A. So I'm going to send it over to Willie and Dusan, but with the first question being, what is TISAX and how does it fit in the automotive ecosystem? Go ahead.
I take that. First of all, Cindy, thank you so much for the introduction. Much appreciated. And I'm very glad and happy to be here on this webinar. As the audience has seen, I'm the global head for information security, strategy and business development here at SGS. And in my previous lives, I used to be an auditor for all kinds of ISO standards. But I'm also sitting on some ISO committees, writing wonderful standards. But coming to the question, what is TISAX and how does it fit in the ecosystem? So first of all, TISAX stands for Trusted Information Security Assessment Exchange. And in essence, it's a platform where companies within the ecosystem can exchange information. And that could be things like drawings, that could be things like contracts. It's a secured environment, right? But then there's also that TISAX assessment, which we are going to explain during this webinar. And fundamentally, there are 3 assessment levels. We call them AL1, AL2, and 3. AL1, for all intents and purposes, is a self-assessment. And frankly speaking, it has really minimal bearing in terms of what's the value of me filling out something. Experience tells us that people and organizations filling out those self-assessment questionnaires always say perfect, 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 perfect. And we know reality is slightly different. So then there comes AL2 and AL3, which are a little bit more going into depth and requiring an external party to conduct the assessment. So TISAX in a nutshell is an information security assessment as a methodology leading to a label, leading to some kind of stamp, so to speak, that certain requirements are being fulfilled, and is a requirement from all the German car manufacturers. So VW Group, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and so on and so forth. However, we also do know that the big three from Detroit are collaborating with ENX, the owner of the scheme. So don't be surprised if you hear in the very, very near future that those requirements are also imposed upon the supply base of the big three. Now, there is this typical question, supply base like ABS systems and infotainment and steering columns. Yes, absolutely. And more. And that more is expressed in that typical example, a flower shop or a catering company could be subject to TISAX. And then there is this famous deer in the headlight look. Catering? Supplier to the automotive industry? Yes. Think about events where the car manufacturers display their new models, and therefore catering is required, and therefore a catering company provides food and all kinds of other things. And therefore, by definition, the catering company might have access to very confidential information of the manufacturers. For example, they may have access to a prototype a couple of days before the event. And therefore, they are previewed to confidential information that needs to be protected. Therefore, a catering company might be subject to that. Or a catering company providing food services on-prem at a manufacturer, they might have access to all kinds of areas within that campus. And therefore, they might be subject to having employees access to this kind of areas. And therefore, the catering company needs to have suitable processes in place to protect this kind of information. So very generically speaking, TISAX falls into this area of car industry requires, or German car industry requires their supply base to have a solid system. I trust this answers that first question.
Yeah, thank you, Willie. That's very good. I wanted to show in this slide just, I pulled this just yesterday from the source that I have here. It's a repository of cyber attacks on different institutions, really, that are in touch with the automotive industry. So, attack shuts down UK mass transportation website, logistics groups, Tier 1, of course, transportation agency, German mobility agency website. So it's not only traditional automotive suppliers that would require a system basically to secure their information and data exchange, but some of not so traditional companies like what Willie just said, caterings and stuff like that. So this is interesting to discuss. I wanted also to say that the question was, how does it fit within automotive system? So what we believe is that TISAX should be basically implemented within an existing management system. So management system can be, of course, different with different topics. It can be, of course, IATF and ISO 9001, their quality management system. We have 2701, it's information security management system, 14,001 environmental, and so on. So what we suggest is basically building TISAX requirements within an overall automotive system. that we show here. As you can see, we have different topics and this fancy card here with different different topics, I guess, for the focus on different items. So quality, safety, but again, security. We're going to touch on 21434 later. TISAX is the Trust Information Security Exchange, and then 2701, as I stated already. So I think, yeah, with this, we answered the questions. Cindy, we can probably jump to the next question.
Okay, I think that would be on the next slide, I guess.
Yeah. So what does
TISAX mean?
Exactly. I think Willie already said, so it's a Trusted Information Security Assessment Exchange, right, Willie? You explained already, I guess, what does it cover? So it's basically an assessment that is specifically designed to address the automotive industry cybersecurity requirements. So it's not only vehicle, it's basically everything that's happening around automotive industry, you know, data exchange, information exchange, and so on.
And yes, I would really like to emphasize, it includes prototype protection, and it includes privacy. It includes questions like availability. So, for example, if an organization's billing system is hacked, that's one thing. But what is if the organization's manufacturing system is hacked, and therefore the company can just simply not produce parts? Or the UPS printer is disabled, and therefore they cannot print labels for the UPS packages that need to be sent out. All these kind of questions need to be addressed and are being checked within this TISAX assessment.
Okay. Let's skip to the next question. What is the difference between ISO 21434, TISAX or TISAX, however you prefer, and ISO 27001? Both Willie and I are auditors, but Willie he has a wider spectrum, I guess, of auditing experience. I'm only ITF auditor. So I'm going to leave this to you, Willie, and then I'll jump in with my feedback.
Sure. Thank you, Dusan. So let's start with TISAX. We addressed that already. There it's about the organization protecting information that they have access to from their clients with regard to the automotive industry. 27001 is information security management system affecting cybersecurity and privacy. And that is for any and all companies. So theoretically, a kindergarten or a church could be certified to ISO 27001 because
so it's a wider requirement, right?
Exactly. So both a church as well as a kindergarten have information about their customers, their members. The kindergarten has information about the kids and potentially information about their allergies and their parents and their guardians and stuff like that. They may have credit card information, right? So all that kind of information can be and should be protected. And the mechanism for that would be an ISO 27001 system that provides the necessary governance to have the foundation to ensure that things are getting done in a repetitive, consistent way. And if there are situations that require changes, for example, incidences, then there needs to be some kind of mechanism to improve upon the system so that these kind of situations do not happen again in the future. That said, ISO 21434 is cybersecurity for vehicles.
Correct.
Well, here we are now talking about the vehicle itself and maybe the infrastructure around the vehicle that may be attacked by cyber attacks. So classical example would be a guy has a car, recognize that the headlight is damaged, vandalism, he thinks. So of course he replaced the headlight, it's only $800. And what a surprise, it happens again 3-4 weeks later. Now he's really annoyed. And he's talking with a friend in cyber. And the friend says, well, your car has been hacked. Well, what do you mean? Well, before the conversation is over, the car is gone, e.g. stolen. So what happened was the bad guys damaged the headlight, installed a device that was constantly tracking and monitoring the traffic on the CAN bus, the internal vehicle communication system, and were able to record the signals that were sent to, via the remote control, opening the car, disable the car, enable the car, and so on and so forth, right? Sooner or later, they retrieved that device, that spying device, therefore the second destruction of the headlight, and were able to learn the codes, the messages that were flowing around on the CAN bus, and subsequently they were able to replicate that and steal the vehicle. There are all kinds of other attacks possible on vehicles, but this is the essential question when it comes to 24434. How do you protect the components and subcomponents and assemblies within the vehicle from cyber attacks? And if they happen, what kind of countermeasures would you have to either detect or to prevent the spreading? So it's bad enough that the entertainment system might be hacked, but hopefully if the entertainment system is hacked, then that does not have a negative impact or effect upon the ABS system, let alone the self-driving capabilities of the vehicle. So in summary, 27001 is the umbrella thing that covers any and all organizations and any and all information. TISAX, information related to the OEMs, by their suppliers, by the supply chain. How do you protect that? 21434, how do you protect the information or the systems on a vehicle from or against cyber attacks? Dusan?
Thank you, Willie. That was excellent. Thank you very much. So let me just put in a few technical details. I guess you said TISAX is based on ISO 27001. ISO 27001 is a information security management system, and TISAX is a label. So we do an audit for 27001, and we do assessment for TISAX. ISO 27001 is international standard. TISAX to this date is not international yet, as Willie said earlier. Only German automotive OEM currently require their suppliers to be TISAX certified. Sorry, assessed. There you go. There's a difference. So, but again, with a good chance that all North American OEMs will adopt. As we said, in TISAX, the whole company is being assessed. In ISO 27001 functions, production lines can be assessed individually. TISAX audits are with 3-year renewal. Again, audits. I said audit assessment, and thank you very much, Willie, for looking at me like that. And ISO 27001 is on the other side, is a yearly base audit. That's pretty much it, I guess, from the technical point of view. I don't know if we, Cindy, have any questions that are in. If not, we can jump to the next one. So is TISAX mandatory in the US? So again, if you want to be a supplier to German automotive OEMs in North America, you will be required to go through the assessment for TISAX. That's already a customer-specific requirement for Volkswagen Group, so Audi, Volkswagen, Skoda. I guess it's not in North America, Porsche, and so on. So that group requires TISAX assessments. Willie, you said that North American OEMs are already in discussions with ENX to basically adopt the same system, right?
Yes.
Good. So basically, it is very likely that North American OEMs will require their supplier base to be assessed for TISAX. And as I said, not only supplier base, but all the interactions that OEMs would have with all the facilities that they have basically in their surrounding, the dealerships and so on. So it's all covered under TISAX, as we spoke earlier. Okay, anything to add, Willie, or that's it for this one? Okay.
You covered it very, very nicely. Thanks.
Okay. So I just wanted to say this is basically the summary of what we just spoke about. It's a customer-specific requirement currently for German OEMs. If, as I said earlier, I'm IATF auditor, so if I would look for a contingency plan within an organization in this clause, 6.1.2 from 0.3, I would definitely take a look at how the company is basically making sure that their information and data protections are secure. Basically, what exactly do they do to assure no cyber attacks or no similar ransom attacks, I guess, as we say, are happening at the company. So much for that, right, Willie?
Yes.
Let's skip to the next question. Who needs to have a TISAX label? OEMs, Tier 1s and 2s, both? I'll leave that to you, Willie. You start. How's that?
Well, the OEMs obviously not, because the OEMs, the original manufacturers, the car manufacturers, are imposing that requirement upon their suppliers. Therefore, obviously, it's the Tier 1 and the Tier 2. Because first, it's required by the OEMs for the Tier 1s. But, with the gray hair, you see that I'm on this planet for a couple of months now. And I know that the trend in the automotive industry is that this kind of requirements are getting pushed down the supply chain. So it's only a question of time until there's also a requirement for the Tier 2s to fulfill those requirements. And let's be brutally honest, TISAX is a collection of good practices that every and any organization really should follow. Things like good password protection, physical security, background checks of employees. So all those things are not really rocket science and are not automotive specific. They are just simply good business practice for any company. Are there specific requirements? Absolutely. That's the reason why there is TISAX in the first place, right? But fundamentally, every organization within the supply chain should have a very, very close look at TISAX requirements so that they can implement them, not necessarily under time pressure, but at their space or pace they think is appropriate. The last thing you want to do is you don't want to wait until you get that email or letter from your customer saying, by the way, you know that the contract is ending December 31st, and in order to enter a new contract starting January 1st, you shall have a TISAX label. And then you say, just hold on, it's only October 26th, and you get a heart attack. That's the last thing you want, because then you are not able and maybe even not capable of implementing such a system. It's much, much better to be proactive, learn about the requirements so that you can implement them over a relatively long period of time of, 6 months or so, rather than 6 weeks. And that gives you ample time to really implement a solid system that can be easily assessed and getting the label. Dusan?
Thank you, sir. No, I think that covers what we wanted to cover, what we wanted to talk about here. Let's go to the next question. It says, what is the process to get started for TISAX? So let me take this one first, Willie, and of course you can jump in anytime. So there's actually 3 steps, really. If you go to the web and look for ENX website, you will find all information basically that you need. I'm going just to repeat here what's already there in a few slides. So what you need to do is first register to that type. Basically, this is you show your intention to be assessed against TISAX requirements. When you register, you will have to basically understand what is your scope. Do you want to have one site? I'm going to jump to the next page just to show you that. So what is the scope of your assessment? Do you want to have what exactly is that you require from your assessor to do? If you're, let's say, dealing with Audi, we know that Audi, as part of the Volkswagen Group, requires their sub-suppliers to be AL3 or at the level 3 to be in business with them. You have to know the scoping. Scoping is basically, how wide you want your supplier base or your company. If you're a single company or if you're a single site company, then it's simple, I guess, or simpler than if you have, let's say, a corporation of 20 sites. You have to understand which sites do exchange information with the OEMs. And finally, assessment objective is what I just said. Is it AL2? Is it AL3? This is what your customer is basically telling you. We want you to be at this and that level. I'm going to go just back to the previous slide. So again, we said registration, you decide where and what. You're going to pick your assessor. So there's a number, basically there's a nice map on the website where, you're going to find your region, let's say Canada or United States. And the site basically shows exactly which assessor is capable of doing assessment on behalf of ENX. So you will get in contact with the assessor and arrange, as we say, the assessment. The assessment takes place over a period of time. Finally, when you do get your label, meaning that you're basically complying to TISAX requirement, you can exchange the results with your customer. This is what we call exchange phase of the whole process. Willie, did I miss anything? I don't know, probably.
Well, I can say no, because it gave a very good overview, and yes, because we could continue talking about that for the next 3 days.
Yes.
So, of course, from an overview perspective, that was just fine. But I also would like to take the opportunity to answer a question that came in the Q&A, and that was, what are the main stages involved in the TISAX assessment process, and how do organizations typically prepare for a TISAX assessment? So let's start with the last portion of the question. How do companies usually prepare? At that early stage, my suggestion is go to a TISAX training class. Yes, we do offer something like that. So please feel free to reach out to TISAX for getting an overview. What is TISAX really all about in more detail than what we can provide in a 1-hour webinar. Alternatively, reach out to a consultant that might be able to help you and guide you through that process. I believe it can be done by an organizations by themselves, but if you are really under time pressure, the consultant route might be an alternative. And then obviously at the same time, please engage with us and ask us for a quote for the entire process, because at the end of the day, you should not think linear. You really should think in parallel, and all those kind of things might take a little bit longer than anticipated. And if you wait, doing it sequentially, it only will extend the project. I wouldn't say indefinitely, but close to it. So then the real question is, what is the scope? And that needs to be defined by you together with your client, together with your customer. And let's make a hypothetical example. Let's say you are a manufacturer of entertainment system or infotainment system. Then obviously the scope would be information related to the protection of that, right? And that means, among others, potentially having access to prototypes, at least prototypes of the dashboard, because sooner or later, you will need to make sure that your infotainment system fits into the dashboard. So therefore, you will have access to prototypes of the entire dashboard. Then there might be situations, let's say you are a SaaS provider, software as a service provider, and you provide some kind of tools that the automotive industry uses for their activities. I don't know, some kind of customer relation management or some kind of system that helps organizations with implementing 21.4 requirements. By definition, you will have access to prototype information. And you say, no, we only provide the platform. It's in the cloud and it's all secure because it's in the cloud. A, wrong. B, sooner or later, the customer's users, the engineers will call you and say, I've got a problem. Doesn't this happen? I can't find that. And then you go in with your super user password and you see what they are working on. And you see all kinds of confidential information. So you may not have access to the physical prototype, but you may have access to the digital twin of the prototype. And that means you need to protect that information in one way or the other. So it's very important to define the scope. Once you have done the scope and you have registered, as Dusan already said on the website, you can get that scope excerpt, literally, print screen, download, and send that to SGS so that we can provide you with a quote, because that is the essential stuff we need to know in terms of effort, in terms of assessment level. And then there are some preparatory meetings where we go over, what we expect. That usually takes a couple of hours, literally a couple of hours. And then the next phase is obviously a little bit more intense. We are looking for documentation. And if it is an AL3 assessment, we would need to come on-prem and verify how you implement those controls. I hope that helps a little bit to understand that process from, the ideation phase, so to speak, to getting the label. Dusan?
So basically, really, what you let me repeat the last section of your message here. So AL2 is assessment that we can do remotely, right? That's how I understand. And AL3 is the assessment that we do on site. So we have to come on site and do the assessment and basically review all information, kind of face to face. So I think that's very important to understand. And of course, all these assessment levels as assessment objectives are basically coming from the customer. They want you to have they want you to be assessed against certain level. That's what they want, and this is what you have to fulfill as a customer specific requirement.
It's not at the discretion of the organization that is assessed. It's at the discretion of the client.
Mm-hmm. And of course, really, maybe we missed to say, I think you said in the beginning, there's AL1, which is the self-assessment. But again, not too many companies accept that as a viable, I guess, proof of requirement, fulfillment of the requirement, right?
Yes, correct. However, you still need to do an AL1 in order to be prepared for AL2 and AL3. Because,
of course, you have.
I would never, ever, under no circumstances, not even over my dead body, invite an external person to assess my system without having assessed it myself. It just, it would be suicide.
Common sense.
It's common sense.
Okay, let's jump to the next question. How long does it take to get the TISAX label? Wow, depends how ready you are, really. So as we said, I guess we kind of went through the process. You have to register, you have to pick your assessor, you have to confirm the objectives and everything. It takes some time, of course. Assessment, on-site assessment. Let's take, for example, assessment level 3. It takes basically it happens on site. The auditor, the assessor again would come to your site and do opening. Mean it's very similar to IATF auditing. It's not not much different. Only the requirements are different. He would go through assessment questionnaire that basically you can download on ENX portal, and he or she would basically assign maturity level to each of the components of that Excel spreadsheet. How long does it take? Well, depends how ready you are. If you don't have any non-conformities, or if you have no deficiencies, then you're ready to get your label and you're good for 3 years unless you change your scope, of course, right? If you do get non-conformities, then there's a difference between minor and major. Majors have to be fixed right away, if I'm not mistaken, Willie. And there's certain time you're allowed to basically do the corrective actions, very similar to any audit that most of the people have gone through. Once you close those NCRs, again, that's the period of time. You will get your label after your assessor says that you're basically in line with the TISAX requirements. I think that's pretty much it, right, Willie?
Correct. And I really would like to emphasize the auditing portion is the shortest period of time. The longest period of time is the implementation. And we cannot really tell you how long that takes, because to Dusan's point, that really depends upon where the organization is in terms of their maturity. If you are a well-established company, if you are, fluent in information security and cybersecurity, because that's what you do, because you are providing some kind of SaaS solution for that industry in general terms, then I'm convinced you have user registration process. I'm convinced you have strong password policies. You have access management physically and logically. You don't need to implement that. But on the other hand, if you are, let's say, established manufacturer of screws, bolts, and nuts, that might be not the case. And that is the implementation phase that will take longer than the actual assessment phase. But there is a third component, and I really would like to emphasize that, and that is not, for the purpose of scaring anyone, but it's a fact of life, it's reality. You cannot call us on a Thursday and expect that Monday next week we are showing up for an assessment. Sorry to say, not gonna happen. Auditors are a very scarce resource, and there are not a lot of auditors out there. So we really need to emphasize to our clients, plan literally 4 or 5 months in advance to have your assessments. Is it occasionally possible to squeeze in something? Yes, but that's occasionally and exceptionally. And that's not just an SGS thing, that's throughout the assessment ecosystem. Every assessment firm has the same challenges, the same opportunities. So if you have a deadline, let's say assessed or having the label in hand by March next year, you really need to call us this afternoon.
Yes, you're right.
It's just the way it is. If your timeline is by Q4 2024, okay, that's fine, that's cool. You still should call us this year, because make sure you are getting on the calendars, get sure you're getting on the schedules, because otherwise it will be just too stressful to get these things off the ground. Dusan?
Yeah, thank you very much. And as you said, I guess if you're if you have already a management system in place, if you have a quality management system in place, you have contingencies in place, it's implied that you have, if you have a certification, then you have already covered a portion of the requirement, or a good portion of the requirement. Then you need to probably tweak one or two things here to be compliant to TISAX. If you have information security management system certification, ISO 27001, I think you're extremely or very close to being compliant to TISAX as well. As Willie explained, ISO 27001 basically is a wider system. So TISAX it's not a subset, but you basically have a lot of common requirements that basically apply for automotive industry. So yeah, thanks for that. Do we have any questions, Cindy? I see one here. How will you explain TISAX for a newbie in automotive cybersecurity? It came from Mohammed. I think that we, in a nutshell, explained all of it. If newbie in automotive cybersecurity, you have to build a quality management system or a management system on top of which you will need to basically build additional supplemental requirements, basically to be in compliance with TISAX, right? Any other questions, Cindy? Do you see anything or?
No, thank you, Willie and Dusan.
Sorry,
I don't, but I think that in this presentation, it really covered a lot of the newbie type steps that would require a TISAX label. We do not have any others. Is there anybody else that would like to put a question in the chat?
While we are waiting for that, I would like to revert back to the last question for newbie in automotive cybersecurity. I think we really need to seriously differentiate between automotive cybersecurity as in vehicle cybersecurity versus cybersecurity, information security, TISAX for the organization. Here we are talking about how do we protect the product and its infrastructure, whether this is, the data centers that are somehow storing the data that are getting transmitted from the vehicle, or the vehicle in itself, versus how do we protect information about the vehicle and about the manufacturing process of the vehicle. All this confidential information that might be flowing around as in bill of material, pricing, drawings, all that good stuff. So two different kinds of areas that need to be protected, and there are different standards and certifications and assessments for that. Cindy, do we have any questions?
I'm still waiting to see if there are any more. Let's give it a couple more seconds. But the two that were in there that you've answered already.
Yeah, I think there's usually one other question that is always coming on those webinars, and this is how much? How much does it cost?
As much as an IATF audit, I would say, right?
Sorry, Dusan?
As much as an IATF audit, I was going to say. So,
well,
right.
No, it really depends upon the scope. And my example is always the same. There is a huge difference between a company that has 5 employees, 1 office, and maybe 1 stamping machine or 1 whatever, right? And yes, they are delivering to the automotive industry, but it's a very small operation. Right. And then on the other hand, you have a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company that has, 20 production facilities in the United States and another 10 in Canada and another 50 in other continents. Of course, there's a huge difference. At the end of the day, it really depends upon the scope, the complexity of the assessment. I think we got a new question.
Yeah, we have a new question here.
What are the mandatory requirements to be covered in TISAX? Dusan, want to handle that?
Well, we have here basically, depending on the scope, again, depending on the scope. And again, as Willie said, if you're dealing with prototype parts, and most of automotive companies do, at least the bigger ones, I guess tier ones, then your OEM is going to tell you, I want to make sure that whatever information I exchange with you, I want you to be at this level, which is level 3. So the requirements of TISAX are basically in this Excel questionnaire that I mentioned earlier. If you go to your ENX portal, you'll be able to download ISA, Information Security Assessment Questionnaire, where basically you have all requirements, in different tabs of the Excel sheets. And the minimum level that you have to have for all requirements are 3 if you want to be at that label, I should say, right?
Correct. So
Willie,
just to
feel free, please. Yeah.
No, just to explain the same thing, just in slightly different words. So if the audience is interested in a detailed list of the requirements, please go to enx.com. On the website, you will find ENX Association, Network, and TISAX. Click TISAX. And then you will see a drop-down menu coming up with, among others, Participant Handbook. That's the first thing you have to download so that you can understand the entire process. And below that Participant Handbook, you will see Downloads. Click there. And then you will find a list of documents, among others, the ones Dusan just mentioned, the ISA, so that you can download that spreadsheet and see the questions and requirements related to the different assessment levels, so that you can prepare yourself and prepare your organization for an assessment to those areas. Unfortunately, our system we are using here for this presentation, for this webinar, does not allow us to share live screens. So all the slides you see have been uploaded prior to the start of the webinar. Otherwise, I would say, okay, let's share my screen and I go there. But enx.com, TISAX, Participant Handbook, and Downloads, and then ISA. These are the documents you need to download so that you get a good understanding what are the kind of requirements an organization needs to implement.
And there are different clauses, they're basically put in different tabs of this Excel sheet. So, you have a segment covering policies, then human resources, then physical security and business continuity, identity and access management, IT security, cybersecurity, supplier readiness or relationships, compliance, and prototype finally. So it's a nice document that basically gives all information needed for you to the assessment. There's another question. So TISAX protects vehicles, infrastructure around it, everyone. Anything that is somehow related in the process of making vehicles, like catering service, which might know something about the company in providing its services that are not automotive related. Basically, CIA or ISI of automobile cybersecurity.
Yes, Culinary Institute of Americas is obviously part of it. Just kidding. Confidentiality, integrity, availability is obviously the foundation of every cybersecurity / information security management system. So yes, exactly as the question stated, TISAX protects the vehicles, or should I say the manufacturing of vehicles, and the ecosystem around it, the factories, the design centers, the prototype centers, the crash test centers, so that the information of the OEMs is protected. Correct.
So information and exchange.
Yes, I also would like to have a quick look at the clock. So it's 10 minutes to the top of the hour. And that means we also need to mention that we do have TISAX classes coming up. More than happy to share with you the details. Please shoot us an email go to our website, go to our SGS Academy, and we also have classes related to 26.26.2, the automotive functional safety training. Please feel free to reach out to either Cindy, Dusan, or myself if you have any further questions. We believe in partnership. We believe that we are in this all together, and we do believe that we can help you with your specific challenges and opportunities. And I see there is another question coming in. What is the main difference between 27001 and TISAX on the basis of requirements to be covered? So ISO 27001 starts with that very generic question: context of the organization, risk assessment, identifying suitable controls to mitigate those risks identified, compare those controls you just identified with the NXA, create a statement of applicability, and implement. Regardless of the information you need to protect. It's from kindergarten to NASA. On the other hand, TISAX is focused on information security for automotive. And therefore, there's some very specific requirements, as in prototype protection, for example. If you have prototypes and you manufacture products for VW and BMW and Mercedes, you better have 3 facilities. Because otherwise, how can you really, really protect those prototypes? And the last thing you want to have is that you have a prototype of a future Mercedes-Benz vehicle, and a delegation from VW comes to your facility and says, "Oh, that's really cute." They may say it's cute, but it also means you lose the contract with VW, because if you're not protecting Mercedes, VW knows that you're not protecting their own prototypes. So it's really, the focus is different. In terms of the requirements, they are very, very similar, but yet distinct. That's the reason why it is so imperative that you go to the ENX website and download the ISA. Then there is a question whether we do have TISAX training in Mexico. Unfortunately, no, we don't. But our TISAX training is actually virtual. So it's not an in-person training. It's a virtual remote trainers-based training. So yes, we do have training in Mexico, but we don't have on-prem training in Mexico. If that is a requirement, we definitely can also create some special arrangement where you say, well, we are training, or we need to have, I don't know, 5 or 10 people of our company trained to TISAX. By all means, please reach out to us. More than happy to arrange a customized training so that we can do that in Mexico as well. But I really need to emphasize, when we say customized, that's not customized as for that particular company, because that would be considered consulting, and we cannot do that. So it's still the generic training we do. We will do that in a hotel, in a public space, and we will invite other organizations to join us as well. I hope that answered that question.
Excellent.
Do we have any other questions? Cindy, do you see something popping in or something popping up?
No, I think we have answered all the questions that are in the chat.
Great.
Well, I guess that's it.
That's the end.
Right?
Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. As you can see, we have all the contacts for the speakers and myself, along with the SGS website. Please feel free to reach out to the 3 of us for any questions or requests. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day. Hope to hear from you very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.